Guys, Matt Laidlaw here, coming to you from LA area's oldest, largest, and finest Harley-Davidson dealership, Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. So today we're doing a test ride and review on the new 2019 Road Glide Special. So I'm going to be taking these bikes out with Andrew and Nick. We're going to take out a Special and also a Road Glide Standard. Since I rarely get to both of these bikes, we're going to kind of combine them into one video and compare the Special to the Standard. So here we got a 2019 Road Glide Special in the billiard blue. This is a brand new color for the 2019 model year on the Road Glide. So the Road Glide has been a staple in the Harley-Davidson lineup for a very long time now. The distinguishing characteristic about the Road Glide is the stationary shark nose fairing, as they call it. So the shark nose fairing on this bike is a frame mounted fairing, and so it always stays pointed straight, and the steering spins and turns independent of the fairing, unlike the Batwing fairing, which is a fork mounted fairing that swivels with the steering. Another signature trait about the Road Glide is the dual headlamp as well. You got dual LED reflector daymaker lights up there. That's been that way since 2015 when they redesigned the fairing on this bike. In 2014 they did a 1-year hiatus of the Road Glide, so you couldn't get the Road Glide. A lot of people were nervous that they discontinued it, but they just basically gave it a rest for 1 year in 2014 when they came out with the Project Rushmore, and then in 2015 model year they applied all the Project Rushmore changes to the Road Glide and gave it the new fairing and the new LED daymaker headlamps. So in 2017, Harley-Davidson came out with the Milwaukee 8. This year the big change was they bumped it up from a 107 cubic inch to a 114 cubic inch. Last year in the 2018 model year, Harley-Davidson made a huge cosmetic change to the specials, to both the Road Glide and the Street Glide Special. Basically everything on the bike that was chrome or raw aluminum, they blacked out. So that's a trait or a cosmetic change that carried on through the 2019 model year. Here's the other big change this year is you got the new infotainment system, the 6.5 GTS boom audio system. So it's a brand new radio basically. You've got the Gorilla Glass on it. It's a faster processor. The software is all new as well. Here's a shot of the rear fascia of the bike. You've also got stretched bags on the Road Glide Special as well. On the Road Glide Standard, you just have the standard depth bag. That's another thing that took place last year in the 2018 model year when they applied the blacked out finishes to all the covers and the forks and everything, was they also added this stretched bag element as well. So I think that's pretty cool, and I really like the fact that Harley-Davidson differentiated the Road Glide Special from the Road Glide Standard a lot more with the blacked out cosmetics and the stretched bags, and then further differentiating them both this year with the 114 as well. I think it's important to really have a large separation between those two models, as well as a big price separation. You've got about a $3,500 price separation if you compare the Special to a Standard that's equipped with ABS and the larger infotainment system. On the Special, you've also got the larger 6.5 GTS system as standard equipment, whereas on the Road Glide Standard, you have to pay $895 for the upgrade. Otherwise, you get the 4.3-inch screen, and you do not get the ABS. On the Special, ABS comes standard. On the regular Road Glide, it's a $795 upgrade for that equipment. Personally, at my shop, I order all the Road Glide Standards fully optioned out with the bigger screen and the ABS. I think for the little bit of a price increase and the price bump, you'd be stupid not to get these upgrades unless you really just don't even care about the infotainment system. You're not going to use it at all. But that's just my opinion. I think it's well worth the money. This is a brand new wheel design as of last year. Harley-Davidson calls this the Talon wheel. So you got a 19-inch front wheel and an 18-inch rear wheel on the Road Glide Special. Road Glide Standard has a 16-inch rear wheel and a 19-inch front wheel, and a little bit different wheel style as well. They call it the Enforcer wheel on the Road Glide Standard. Here's a shot of the saddle here. So the seat, you got a 2-up seat. Harley-Davidson definitely goes for the sleek, low-profile look on the Road Glide. The Road Glide is definitely more of your like sleek, lowered profile bagger style. So not as comfortable a seat as like you're gonna find like an Ultra Limited, but it also doesn't have that real padded, puffy look as well, which in my opinion can take away from the look if it's on like a sleek bagger like this. So here's a demo of the gas fuel tank. You got a 6-gallon fuel tank on this bike. That's been the same since about 2008. Here I am just kind of cycling through the trip A and trip B, the odometer here on this bike. Here's another shot of the infotainment system, the 6.5 GTS. So here are the vents here. Again, you've had these vents since the 2015 model year when they redesigned the fairing and reintroduced the Road Glide to the lineup. So you've got 3 vents total, 1 above the radio and then 2 side vents. And again, those are used to reduce head buffeting. Here's another shot of the infotainment system. If you guys haven't already, check out my video I did. I sat down and did kind of an in-depth walkthrough on this new Boom Audio GTS system at the beginning of the model year. And I did it on a CVO Ultra Limited. I'll put a link in the top right-hand corner to a video. You guys can kind of check that out. I kind of walk you through like some of the core functions of this system. And so yeah, the new system's awesome in a nutshell. I wish I had it on my bike. It's a lot faster, a lot snappier. The maps are a lot better where you can pinch and zoom and drag and everything, and just setting up your phone via Bluetooth and everything is just a lot more intuitive. The glass is a lot better as well. Here are some storage containers as well. You got your USB cord in there, so you stick your phone in there and you can charge your phone. You can also play music as well. You can also play the music via Bluetooth, which I commonly use the most. You've also got the storage compartment on the left there. You've got a cigarette lighter, power, auxiliary port there as well. So these storage containers here are kind of storage that comes above and beyond what you find like on a street glide. So a little extra storage capacity there. Here's your hydraulic clutch, the hydraulic clutch master cylinder up there. You've had a hydraulic clutch on all the touring bikes since the Rushmore project change, which was applied to these bikes in the 2015 model year. And here's just another side profile shot. You can kind of see, you know, all the blacked out cosmetics on the exhaust. You can see the wheels again. Again, you got an 18-inch rear wheel, 19-inch front wheel, Talon design. New wheel design came out last year in the 2018 model year, so I'm a big fan of that as well. And so yeah, just a really good looking bike. The Road Glides represent just a huge staple in the Harley-Davidson lineup. The Road Glides are pretty much tied with the Street Glide for the best selling Harley-Davidsons right now. I believe that's in the country. It's definitely at our shop. The Road Glide Specials and Street Glide Specials are among the top 3 best-selling bikes that Harley-Davidson offers right now. So at our shop, I know it's different everywhere, but at our shop we probably sell 6 or 7 specials for every 1 standard we sell. Even with the price increase, you saw about a $1,000 price bump this year. One more thing that was kind of nice about the infotainment system this year is you have a back button. So that button right there used to be the I button, which was not really used that much. So with the back button, it's a lot easier to just go back 1 menu as opposed to having to toggle the switch up and to the left to go back. So just, you know, navigating the menus and the different screens on the new infotainment system is just a lot easier now. Yeah, one more thing that's kind of just made everything a little bit more user friendly on the new infotainment system. And you can see you've also got edge-to-edge glass. You got the Gorilla Glass on this infotainment system, so it goes edge to edge as opposed to having those 2 panels on the left and right hand side on the old infotainment system. Something on the new GTS infotainment system that I didn't touch on in my video that I did that I wish I would have is you've got this engine info menu where you can kind of look at your distance since your last service, and you can kind of see like when your service is due, and you can also look at your trip summary. You can see like, you know, things like your distance traveled, your fuel stops, and things like that. So a couple additional menus now in the GTS infotainment system that you didn't have in the old GT system that I thought was pretty nice. And yeah, here's kind of another info screen that you can kind of track your distance and, you know, your average mile per hour and things like that. I had a question the other day on how to shut the system off. You just hold down that power button for 3 seconds and you can shut it off altogether. So I'm going to run through all the colors that are available in the 2019 model year for you guys real quick. So first off, you got your Vivid Black, which is pretty much available on every single bike. And then you've got your Industrial Grade Denim, which is one of the bikes that we're using in this video when we did the test ride. You've got your Wicked Red Denim, so Wicked Red in the flat color. Last year they had this in just a solid pearl, like a gloss finish. But this year they put it in the denim finish. And here you got your billiard blue, which is the color I just showed you guys. This is scorched orange and black denim. So this is kind of a unique paint job where you've got half of it in a gloss finish and the other half in a matte or a denim finish, as Harley-Davidson calls it. So this paint process is, very involved, where you've got to, mix the two, the gloss and the denim. They had a similar process available on the CVO Street Glide last year. So this is the first year where they've done a combination of both the finishes on a non-CVO bike. And the last one is the silver flux and black fuse, which is considered a custom color as well, along with this scorched orange and denim black is a custom color. You pay a premium for these two colors. All right, so I'm going to run down the colors for the Road Glide Standard. So of course you've got your vivid black, just like every year. Second, you've got your industrial gray. So you don't have the denim finish, you have the pearl or the gloss finish, I should say, in the industrial gray, as opposed to on the Road Glide Special, you have the denim finish. Wicked Red is the third color. So once again, you don't have the denim, you have the gloss finish on this bike. Fourth color is Twisted Cherry. This is a really good color. I like this color a lot. I wish they would have put this on this special as well, but Harley's got to mix things up. I totally understand that. But this is a color that I get requested of a lot. So Twisted Cherry. And then your fifth color, you've got Kinetic Green. This is a new custom color this year. You pay a premium for the custom colors. Not a huge fan of this color myself. A little bit too radical for me. And then you've got Blue Max, which is a similar graphic design. This is a custom color as well. I like the color. Don't really care too much for the graphics on the bike though. But just like there's a butt for every seat, there's a person for every color as well. So yeah, that's your 6 colors for the Road Glide Standard. So as always, a common question I get is questions about the power. Exactly what kind of numbers do these bikes put up? So let me jump into this. This is out of Harley-Davidson's Screaming Eagle catalog. So these are numbers put out by Harley-Davidson based on dynos and just researching other people who have dynoed these bikes. These numbers are pretty much in line with what everybody else is getting power-wise. So they're pretty dang accurate. So let me just start off with the 107. The 107 cubic inch is kind of like the base Milwaukee 8, what it first came out as, and this is the displacement that still comes on the Road Glide Standard. So let's start off here with horsepower, and this is rear wheel. So most manufacturers or people that brag about horsepower, we'll talk about what the horsepower is at the crank, but this is actual rear wheel. So you can see here that it produces about 80 horsepower at 5,000 RPM. And then let's move over to torque here. So the torque is a little bit above 100 foot-pounds of torque. Let's call it 102 foot-pounds of torque. And that comes on at about 3,200 RPM. And so let's move down now to the 114. So for the 114, which comes on the Road Glide Special, so it puts out at 5,000 RPM, it's probably about 84 horsepower or so. And as far as torque goes, so we'll call it 108, 109 foot-pounds of torque.
It's behind the scenes. Giving the people what they want.
Lo que no saben es que I just got back on the road glides and the street glide over here. So I didn't ride the street glide special just because I have a street glide special, not a 114, I have a 107. But I rode the standard road glide with the 107, and then I rode the road glide special. And a couple things that maybe I can touch on that maybe the other two guys didn't. So first off, one of the things I like to talk about is the engine and the performance of the engine. So all the touring bikes since the 2017 model year have the Milwaukee 8. The touring bikes have had the 107 Milwaukee 8, and then just this year they put the 114 cubic inch in the Road Glide, the Street Glide, and the Road King Special, and then the Limited, and then the Trike as well. So this has the 114. A lot of times people will ask me, is it really worth it getting the 114? I think it's worth it, especially everything else that comes with it. Now, are you going to immediately notice a huge power difference? No, probably not. I equate it to about 8 to 10% more power. Where I feel personally the most difference is when you're out on the highway and you roll it on and you're pulling from about 60 to 90 miles an hour. That's when I personally feel it the most. I do agree with Nick's comment a little bit about the torque and it being a little bit nicer on such a heavy cruiser. These bikes are about 830 pounds, and so it is nice to have that additional power on such a heavy cruiser. So the power in the Milwaukee 8 is definitely nice. I've also owned a couple twin cams I had a Road King, a 2009 Road King, and a 2014 Street Glide, and I had the twin cam on both of those, twin cam 103. And I do prefer the Milwaukee 8 over the twin cam. I've talked about this in previous videos before. The twin cam is a little bit more of that mechanical, raw feeling. The Milwaukee 8 is definitely more of a refined engine, and what I mean by that adjective is there's less vibration, especially at an idle, which is definitely nice when it's really hot outside. If you live in like Arizona or a really hot climate area, the Milwaukee 8 is definitely nice to have, especially with the precision oil cooling system, as Harley-Davidson references it as. It cools off the heads a lot better than the non-twin cooled twin cam ever could. And so for cooling reasons, it's definitely nice to have the Milwaukee 8. The charging system is a lot better. I found myself having to charge my battery a lot more frequently, especially with a full dresser that has a fairing and a radio. I feel like the batteries died quicker on the twin cam. So the charging system is better on the Milwaukee 8 as well. And just the overall power, the power delivery, I think is better, especially for the touring bikes. The max torque is produced at about 3,200 RPM, which is a little bit lower RPM. So the stock cam is really good for the touring bikes.
I wanted to give you some of my thoughts about the bike. My main reference point is going to be my lowrider. That's the Harley I've ridden the most since that's the one I currently own. And that's a 2018 lowrider, so that's one of the new Softail lowriders. And I'm a big fan of the Road Glide. I get asked a lot of questions by customers that we have about whether or not someone should go for a Road Glide or a Street Glide, and what kind of the differences are between the two. And I have to be honest with them and say that mechanically they're pretty similar to one another. That being said, I do have my own preference, and I'll get into that in a second. But in terms of the differences between this and my lowrider, this bike's obviously quite a bit bigger, and that's going to affect the handling. I'd say that if you're someone who really wants a nimble, higher performance bike, then you're going to want to stick more with either a lowrider, or a Softail, or something maybe from the Sportster range like the Roadster. But if you're looking to do longer range stuff, if you're going to be doing a lot of highway riding, and it's just going to be kind of open highway stuff, that's where these touring bikes really do excel, for a number of reasons. First of all, you have a lot better wind protection. Even with my little fairing on my bike, this is in an entirely different league than the quarter fairing that I have on my bike. And even the other Dynas that I've ridden with, like T-Sport fairings and stuff, they don't really compete to either the Batwing or the Shark Nose, in my opinion. In addition to that, of course, you've got the sound system, which is nice, and the navigation functionality with the Boombox GTS system that there's really no way to replicate that effectively on a Softail. So there's a lot of functionality. Of course, storage is another advantage for this. I mean, you can put bags on the Softail, but the hard bags here really just kind of, there's no competition between the soft bags that are available versus something like the hard bags for the touring bike. And then of course the additional storage in the fairing is really, really nice. And on the Road Glide, of course, you have better storage in the fairing than you do on the Street Glide. Street Glide has just a tiny little pocket next to the navigation system, whereas you got two decent sized storage compartments. Not what I would recommend for a first time rider unless you're a pretty big guy, just because of the weight. But if you're a slightly more experienced rider and you want to go for long distance stuff, then I would point you towards one of the touring bikes. And then my personal preference is the Road Glide due to the storage, and then I'm also a big fan of the fact that there's very little weight on the bars compared to the Batwing. I just feel like it makes it a little bit more nimble when you're doing slow speed maneuvers like in a parking lot. At speed on the highway, I feel like the two bikes ride pretty much identically. The one factor for me I don't like about the Road Glide is the interior fairing design. Visually, it's all just very far away from me. I'm a short guy, and it's a bit of a reach out to the touchscreen. I'm not a big fan of touching touchscreens, which I know sounds silly, but I don't like putting fingerprints on them, so I'd rather just use the joysticks on this. But regardless of whether or not I want to touch the touchscreen, it's far enough away where I don't feel like I'm sitting behind the bike, not actually in the bike. Unlike the Street Glide where everything's closer, I feel like I'm in a more compact bike, even though dimensionally they're pretty similar. This feels like an even bigger bike than the Street Glide, so that's one thing to consider. Everything's going to be a little bit more close to you on that. For some people, I think taller guys, sometimes it makes them feel a little claustrophobic, but for me, visually, I don't like the Road Glide as much just because everything's further away. But I'd still pick it just because I prefer the handling dynamics at low speeds. So that would be my preference between the two fairing touring bikes. But I ultimately think I picked the right bike for myself just because I'm more of a canyon carver kind of guy, and I split a lot of lanes on the freeway getting here in traffic, and it's a little bit easier to do on a smaller, more lightweight bike. Something like this will do it, but it's just going to require a little bit more energy. This is really for long distance stuff, lots of open highway stuff, and when it comes to that, the practicality of the big bags, all the additional accessories that you can put on in terms of the touring packs, passenger comfort is going to be far and away better than something like pretty much any of the Softails can offer. The only thing that's going to even hold a candle to this is maybe like the Heritage, but even then it's just not going to compete when it comes to something like a full touring pack. So those are my general thoughts on the bike and what I would do in terms of picking between the Street Glide and the Road Glide. Seat heights on all these bikes pretty low. It's a low profile seat. It's still pretty dang comfortable, but that means that even at 5'8", in these boots and even in tennis shoes, I'm easily flat-footing this, and I'm not in any danger of hitting the exhaust. So even if I was a little bit shorter, I could still probably flat-foot this. It's actually good for my arm length too. The stock bars have a bit of a pullback on them, so it's not I'm not fully extended, so it's a really comfortable position. Hits me maybe a couple inches below my shoulder. Wouldn't cause any fatigue on a long trip. So I'm a big fan of the ergonomics on the Road Glide. And the same is really true of the stock Street Glide. So in either case, I'd be more than comfortable at about 5'8" on either one of these bikes. The only reason I would say that a guy like my size probably wouldn't want to start on one is that you tend to make a little bit more mistakes when you're first starting out, and when you get to a bike of this weight, any mistake that you make tends to be amplified. So if you're about to pull out in traffic and someone pulls out in front of you and you're not consciously thinking about whether or not you should grab the front brake and you tug on it just a little too hard with the handlebar crooked, this little thing will be pulling itself over before you really realize it. So you really need to be conscious of that kind of stuff and have some experience before, especially if you're a smaller guy like my size, before you really hop on one of these, because it's an 800 something pound bike. You're not going to save it if it gets past a certain point. So that's why I wouldn't recommend a smaller guy like myself to start on it. But I've only got 3 years of experience, maybe 30,000 miles under my belt, and I probably would have been fine a couple years ago on one of these. So it doesn't really take that long to get to that point. where you could feel confident on one of these. And honestly, they handle their weight really, really well. Center of gravity is really, really low. I don't want to scare anybody. They're really easy to manage once you're more accustomed to them. But it's something where you probably don't want to be thinking about just the dynamics of riding while trying to learn on this. So you kind of want to have that foundation before you hop on one of these. The 107, I actually prefer in the Softails. I like that shorter, stroke crank because I feel like it revs up a little bit faster. But on the heavier bikes, I think I actually prefer the 114 because I feel like with that extra torque, it's not working as hard, so it's a little more effortless. This, I feel like I have to wind it out a little bit more than I do on the 114. Which on a touring bike is not really what I want to do. On a touring bike, I just want kind of effortless passing power, just seamless torque, which the 107 has, but the 114, when you ride it back to back, just has that extra little bit. So I think on a touring bike, I'd actually prefer the 114, whereas on a Softail, like my bike, I'm happy that I had the 107 with the smaller crank. Stretch bags visually are really cool, but they don't make a big difference practicality wise. If anything, I find them to be a little bit annoying because stuff just gets stuck in the nooks and crannies at the bottom, where these are a little bit flatter on the bottom, or a little more consistent level. So stretch bags visually look cool, but not a big difference otherwise. And then upgraded speakers, to be honest with you, maybe if you had an amp in it, it would make a big difference. You do get a little bit more clarity out of the Special because of its upgraded speakers, but I think it's one of those things where to really see the true benefit of the Special, you kind of have to throw an amp in it, because then those, I think, Stage 1 speakers make a bigger difference. And I really do prefer the gloss interior dash. I just think it looks more befitting of a $25,000, $26,000 bike to have the interior dash painted, but that's personal preference. A lot of guys like the matte look, so that's just my personal take on it.
The Road Glide Special has a Stage 1 kit on it. My initial impression of the bike, I mean, it's been a while since I've ridden a stock 114 from the factory, which is really good. I mean, you can really tell the difference between, the power from your butt dyno when you're shifting gears from first to second, and you hit it on that initial, that throttle response is just very good, and you can feel it right away. On the highway, same thing. The passing power is just there. As far as wind protection on the bikes, on my personal Street Glide, I have a little taller windscreen made by Clockworks, and it's that angled windscreen that shoots the air up, and that I can ride on the freeway with my visor open without getting wind in my eyes. These ones from this factory, they're not as great either on the Road Glide or the Street Glide. They're pretty, I'm getting a lot of wind buffeting in my face even with my visor up. But as far as keeping the wind off of your chest, the Road Glide obviously does a better job of that, it being a wider fairing and all. But the reason I went with a Street Glide initially, I just like the look of a Street Glide. The Batwing fairing to me just looks a lot cooler in my opinion. But I do, like Nick said, the storage up in front is a lot nicer. You can fit your phone in there, your wallet. I find myself on trips where usually I throw my wallet in the bag and I don't have the top shelf in the bag, so I'm digging around for my wallet. Here it's nice to, when you stop to get gas, your wallet's right there. You can just pull it out, fill up your gas, and everything's just right there. My height, I'm 5'11", and sitting on the bike, for me, it's very comfortable. I feel everything is ergonomic as far as, my foot placement on the floorboards and all that's being flat-footed on both sides. And another thing is, I don't like having the heel shifter on my personal bike. I take it off because I like putting my foot further back on the backrest to have my feet underneath me on longer trips. But that's one thing I usually take off on my bike. But other than that, that's pretty much it. Yeah, I prefer the Batwing. A lot of people say have a lot of customers asking me, don't get a Street Glide, blah blah blah, because you're fighting the wind and it's bolted to the forks on the Street Glide, and it's just not good in high speeds. When generally I've ridden in all types of rain, weather, high wind situations. And honestly, if the wind is that bad, you shouldn't be riding in it anyway. If it's blowing you across the freeway, you should pull off and just wait it out. The Road Glide does have an advantage at low speeds, but once you're at highway speeds, you're not really steering the bike anyway. I mean, I throw cruise control on, I can take both of my hands off my bars and just kind of crack my knuckles and all that. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with the batwing fairing being bolted onto the forks.
And as far as the other things, ABS is nice. Harley-Davidson introduced the Brembo brakes on these bikes in 2008. They haven't really changed, but the braking is really nice on the touring bikes. Like I said, I've had the same brakes now for three motorcycles, and the Brembo brakes work really well. The ABS is nice too. I was just recently in Hawaii and I was on a Road Glide Standard. Some of you guys may have seen that video. And I veered off and pulled alongside of the road, and it was like really, really loose, like lava rock on Hawaii, on Maui. And I immediately, when I hit the brakes, I started sliding, and the ABS kicked in immediately on the front, and the ABS saved me from dropping the bike on Hawaii when it was a rented motorcycle. So I don't use the ABS very often, but it only takes once or twice for it to really pay for itself. So I recommend ABS on the touring bikes as well, and a lot of that's due to the weight. And I had my wife on the back on that particular instance, and I was really happy that we didn't go down with my wife on the back, and we were like practically in our swimming suits. So the ABS works well, and it does help you keep the bike upright in a bad situation, and it doesn't take a lot of training or effort to be able to get the max benefit out of the ABS as well. You hit the brake, you apply constant pressure on it, and it pretty much does the rest. The ABS takes over and it slips that wheel a little bit just to keep you upright and so you don't skid. So braking is very, very good. It's definitely strong enough and powerful enough for this heavy cruiser. And as far as looks go, I personally prefer the Street Glide. That's why I own one. I looked at the Road Glide real hard when I bought my bike last year in the 2018 model year, and again, I just went back to the same stuff that I kind of referenced when I bought my 2014 Street Glide. I just like the look of the batwing fairing. I like the size of the batwing fairing. I feel like it's a little bit smaller footprint on the front of the bike. I just feel like the Road Glide, it's a great bike, and I love the Road Glide, don't get me wrong, but I just feel like the fairing there's a lot more surface area there. It kind of has this arch look to it where it kind of pulls back and comes back at you a little bit. And I just don't like how much surface area and how bulky the fairing is. I prefer the smaller shape of the batwing fairing, and so for that reason I went with the Street Glide. And a lot of people, one of the most commonly asked questions that I get, and the other guys touched on this a little bit, is the handling and how well this splits the wind compared to the Street Glide. I feel like that's overstated in a big way. A lot of people want to tell you that the Road Glide splits the wind so much easier. In high crosswind situations, the Road Glide is going to split right through the wind, whereas the Street Glide is going to get blown, it's going to jerk your bars, and you'll get veered off the road or whatever. And that's just not the case. That's one of the biggest myths. I'll just dispel that right away. I've ridden both of these bikes a lot. I've ridden them both at high speeds on the freeway with no hands on the handlebars. I feel like this might track 5% better in the wind at high speeds than the Street Glide. And so, based on that percentage, I just think that criteria is very negligible when you're trying to determine which of these two bikes to buy. The Road Glide, I feel like you have a little bit more options as far as bar customization because you're less inhibited by the fairing. Whereas on the Street Glide, you definitely need a bar that's specifically designed for the Street Glide because of the fairing and the shape of the fairing and the bend that you need. So, if you're definitely going to change bars and you want a real specific style of bar, then maybe look at that as far as how you're going to customize the bar and which of the two bikes is more conducive to the style that you want to go for on the bar. As far as other accessories and everything, these bikes are neck and neck as far as customization opportunities. Harley-Davidson has spent a lot of time, and there's been a lot of years of them making and developing parts that fit both of these bikes. Everything from your engine covers to all the accessories that you can put on the back with the 4-point docking hardware. There's a whole bunch of different assisty bars you can put back here. Backrest pads. There's two different sizes of tour pack. You can go to the Chops Tour Pack, you can go to the King Tour Pack. I personally prefer the Chops Tour Pack, which is what I had on my 2014 Street Glide. Not as much space, but I really like just the look of it and just the contours and the lines of the Chops Tour Pack a lot more. And as far as lighting and wheels, there's just a lot of options that you can put on these bikes as well. I have the passing lamps on my Street Glide. I feel like that's one thing that I will mention as far as functionality and utility. The stock lights on the Road Glide are better than the stock lighting on the Street Glide. You have the reflector LED daymaker on the Road Glide, whereas you just have the dual halogen bulb on the Street Glide. So not as good a lighting out of the box. So I always recommend people going to the LED lighting on the Street Glide if they want, really the best visibility at night. As far as winds and cutting the wind, that's another really big question that people ask a lot of. And Nick and Andrew kind of both referenced this. Here's how I'll say it. I feel like full body wind deflection, it's better on the Road Glide. However, if it's easier to get out of the rider bubble on the Road Glide. I feel like a stock Road Glide compared to a stock Street Glide, I have better wind deflection on the Street Glide because the wind hits the fairing closer to your body and it gets deflected up and over your head, whereas on the Road Glide, it's situated further from your body, so it gives the wind a chance to hit the fairing and come back and hit you in the face. So, stock out of the box, I feel like the Street Glide has a little bit better wind deflection on your head, but not so much your body. But if you put a taller windshield on both bikes, I feel like overall wind deflection, the Road Glide beats the Street Glide. So if you're someone who really wants to deflect the wind and really create a large rider bubble where you're protected from the elements, the Road Glide's probably a better option for you there. Overall, I really like both bikes. I think after I'm done with my current bike, my 2018 Street Glide, I may consider getting a Road Glide. I really like a style that's kind of getting or growing in popularity right now. Some of you may have seen the red Road Glide that one of our customers did recently with the Kraus handlebars. I really like the T-bar setup on the Road Glide. I think the next bagger I'll probably do more of a performance-oriented bagger, which is kind of over-the-top suspension and engine build and T-bars and stuff. So I may go with a Road Glide when I do that bike, just to kind of switch things up a little bit. But as of right now, my preference is still on the Street Glide.
The Road Glide definitely embodies what can be considered as having the heart and soul of a Harley-Davidson. The Road Glide is pretty much like a legacy model where it's been around for a long time, and my prediction is it will be around for as long as Harley-Davidson is around as well. With the shark nose fairing and the dual headlamp on there, this is just an iconic look that I just don't see going anywhere anytime fast. It's one of these things that Harley-Davidson has just kind of indoctrinated and ingrained into their customer base so much, and there's just a passionate following for the Road Glide. And so this bike definitely has the heart and soul of a Harley-Davidson. The other big puzzle piece to this equation as well is the Milwaukee 8 engine. Harley-Davidson came out with the Milwaukee 8 in the 2017 model year, and there was a lot of positive feedback and also cynicism and criticism surrounding this engine. There isn't a more difficult brand of motorcycle to create a new engine for than Harley-Davidson by far. So Harley-Davidson engineers, they have a lot of boxes to check when they're building an engine. It's not just let's just build a motor that's as efficient and as powerful as possible. You've got to make something that has the 45-degree angle V-twin, that has the cosmetics, that isn't covered by a bunch of shroud and plastic like a lot of the other motorcycles out there. You've got to create an engine that has that feel, that delivers that low-end torque feeling as well. And then on top of that, they wanted to create a new engine that had more of a refined feel to it, that produced more power as well. And so the Milwaukee 8, I feel like, is a perfect combination of all of those things. The more I ride the Milwaukee 8 and the more I understand what it takes and what goes into building a new engine for the Harley-Davidson, it's just the Milwaukee 8 is a great engine that, like I said, kind of straddles the line between being refined and having that mechanical old school push rod air cooled feel to it. So yeah, the Road Glide in a nutshell definitely embodies the heart and soul of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle. So for the matte factor on the Road Glide Special, I'm going to go ahead and give this bike an 8. I gave the Street Glide Special a 9. I like the Street Glide Special a little bit more, and so there's just a little bit of personal preference there, but The overall package on the Road Glide Special is extremely good, especially with the upgrades this year with the 114 cubic inch engine and the new GTS infotainment system. I feel like Harley-Davidson has just put together a really good bike here. It's just a really good overall bike that you can use for a lot of different things. You look good on it. You know, it's got a really great style that is, you know, very in tune with what people want these days. It's very in style right now, and it's great on the freeway. This chassis and everything, the brakes and everything is just really good for, you know, even the canyons. For a touring bike, this bike is very, you know, canyon carving able. It's not as good as some of the Softail models, like I said, or all the Softail models I should say, but for a touring bike it handles the canyons very well. If I could give one thing that I'd like to see that would make this bike a little bit better, I'd like to see better suspension, rear suspension to be exact. The front forks are pretty good actually. They have that Showa dual bending valve suspension as of 2017 model year, which I think is still pretty dang good. But the rear shocks, I'd like to see more travel. Maybe make the Special a taller shock that's a little bit more premium as well, just to kind of further differentiate the Road Glide Special from the standard. I don't know, but I'd like to see better shocks in these bikes. And yeah, that's about it, guys. If you enjoyed the video, give me a thumbs up if you haven't already. Please subscribe and check out my future Harley-Davidson content. If you're looking for a Harley-Davidson in Southern California, hit us up at Laidlaw's Harley-Davidson. Thanks a lot. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.